One of the things that is an important part of life is flow. And what creates flow is an opening for something to come in and a place for it to move towards, is the birth, maturing, death cycle. And so there's multiple different ways within a relationship and within a monogamous relationship for it to be enriched, for it to reinvent itself, to burn to the ground and reemerge periodically, to grow, to develop new offshoots. There's a variety of ways for a relationship to stay alive and stay vital. But one of the things that I think is important for that sense of vitality and flow is an awareness of values that are more important than the relationship. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit to that subject. What could be more valuable than a good relationship? Well, I think the values that lead to a relationship, for example, for me, I noticed at a young age that there was nothing more fun. There was absolutely nothing more fun than being in a good relationship. There was nothing more pleasurable, engulfing, and satisfying, both sensually and emotionally and mentally, as being in a good relationship. But I also noticed that I grew, I developed more, that depending on who I was with, I became a bigger person. I remember growing up and, as with many children, it's easy to like macaroni and cheese. You start getting into olives, you start getting into sweet and sour, or ungent, and there's all that kind of stuff is icky. And I'd never liked Thai food. It just seemed kind of in that category. And then one day I fell in love with a woman whose favorite food was Thai food. And I love cooking. And I love inventing recipes. And so when I was wanting to cook her a dish that would be beautiful, that would really make her happy, I thought I would cook a Thai dish. So I imagined, like I always do, I imagined the flavor, I imagined what I thought she would like the most. And somewhere along the way of imagining how to make this woman, completely satisfied with this meal, I fell in love with Thai food, and I have loved it ever since. So there's a certain way that when we become more, when we change ourselves and grow ourselves in order to satisfy a partner, that we have the opportunity to expand. And so moving from not liking Thai food to loving Thai food through the act of becoming a great Thai chef for someone that I loved, I'm sure that played a part in my choice to spend time in what is now my favorite country, Thailand. A place that brings me 250% more happiness than any other place that I spend time. And so this ties into a thread of growing and developing in order to become a great relationship partner. And it ties in with something that the channel Lazarus references in one of his talks on love. And what I remember him saying is that if you really love yourself, there's a certain alchemical point in that love relationship where to love oneself at a deeper level, you have to love someone more than you love yourself. And that this can be either to love something that is bigger than yourself, a country, an ideal, a religious text, a dance, something that is bigger than yourself, that's outside of just you. Or to love someone more than you love yourself. And I found that some of my biggest growth has occurred becoming someone for a lover, for a partner, that I would not have become for myself, but that has blessed me long after the relationship ended. That I still have the gift of loving Thai food. That I still, retain the memories and experiences. I remember one woman who, I'm a very untraditional dresser, and she just really wanted to see me in a suit. So I bought one, the first suit in my life, for her. And, it's not been used much since that relationship ended, but it's still a very small addition to my repertoire, in this case, of clothing or possible self-images. And there was one point when I was in relationship with, I think it was 6 or 7 people. It was a very short period of intense exploration, all conscious, all, completely transparent, in an effort to find this peak sense of connecting with all the different parts of me. It's one of the things that one tends to notice, that I certainly noticed in relating to a variety of different women in different cultures, is, I get to be the chef over here because they love food. I get to be the talker over here because they like talking. I get to be the transcendent lover over here because we connect on that basis, but it's not all in the same person. And that really, hit home when in this brief period of multiple partners, because in the course of 1 week, I would spend time with every one of them. And in every single one, I got to be more of myself than I would get to be in any other context. In other words, relationship has a wider variety of personas, of archetypal energies that you can connect with. So it's, tennis and dressing up and rather traditional with one. It's chefing and playing and watching movies with another. It's exchanging poetries and doing a little dancing with another. And so in this sense, for a couple of weeks until, it's very common for, with our level of relationship training and emotional literacy in Western cultures, and as well as the predominance of the career, as these fell apart in different ways. But for that period, I could really get that who I was not a static point, that I am a probability field. And that most of my probability field has never been explored. Because there wasn't, it's like, if there's no one to play tennis with, you don't get to meet your tennis player. If there's no one to play ping pong with, you don't get to meet your ping pong persona. If there's no one to go out jogging at 2 a.m., you don't get to meet that persona. If there's no one that likes talking about esoterics at 3 in the morning, for 5-hour conversations with spontaneous laughter about this and that, absurdity, you don't get to meet that persona. And so there's a way that a relationship evokes the probability field. And what I looked at was, there's all this range. And of course I was the chef with the person who loved food and loved cooking. And I was the tennis player with the person who liked to play tennis. So it's finding this commonality of where I could meet you here and you could meet me here, and here's where we come together. Now, common to all of them, there's an underlying boundary, like I'm never going to lie, I'm never going to cheat, I'm not going to consciously try and hurt someone. So how, so within this matrix of possibility, I lean towards monogamy. And a large part of that is the emotional depth that is, that's possible. There's a place in every human being that they won't go into that emotional depth unless you are singularly and 100% there for them. Because it's virginal depth, emotionally. And there is an unlimited number of emotional veils that can be lifted to reveal the God, the goddess, the beauty, the truth, the goodness in that human being. And it's just more cloudy with the cultural overtone of thoughts that say, well, you'd probably rather be with them, or, if you comment, about another lover and their strength, there's a very strong tendency in our culture to say, well, that's better than my strength. The other person is better. This is very strongly culturated in Western women. And so it's, that's one of the reasons that I like monogamy, is to be able to, give someone the assurance as they're going into that deeper and deeper emotional terrain that, yes, I find many people attractive, and yes, I could have fun with a great number of people. And yes, there are other people that have traits that you don't have, or that have them in a unique flavor that is unique to them. And I'm choosing you. I'm choosing you. And the question is, why? What's the basis to keep that choice alive? And I do think it's valuable. I think it revitalizes a relationship to have alternatives. Monopolies generally, as a closed system, lead to stunted growth. And so one of the best frameworks to be in a relationship that I've experienced is a relationship where, yes, this person would enjoy spending time with me, and yes, you're the kind of person that a lot of men find attractive. And yes, we can do that. So why is it that we choose each other? Why is it And where are we going to go today that's deeper, that's more enriched with that? And this ties in with this sense of open and closed systems, because you don't want a monogamous system to be protected from this energy. I like to think of it as an ongoing choice. I I will never cheat on a partner without communicating. Meaning that stops it, cheating in terms of, if I'm very clear that things have shifted and I'd rather be partners with someone else, either for a short term or a long term or both or whatever, that I have the right to say, I'd really like to spend time with this person. We have an agreement that I'm not going to do this and this and this, and I'd like to change that agreement. Well, this creates turmoil. It creates consequence. It creates pain. Creates those fears. Oh my gosh, does this mean I'm not lovable? Creates fears. It creates turmoil. So it has to be something worthwhile. And most of the time I find that just bringing that up in a way of articulating, honoring the presence of another person in our space. I'm thinking about this other person. And what I'm drawn to this other person about is this. And what I want to experience in my life is this. That's often enough to invoke it into the relationship. And so, because, we're doorways, we're probability fields. And so I've often seen the faces of other lovers coming through my partner, just by both bringing that intention, not let's bring the other person into the partner, but, I really like this energy. We have a conversation. I love that about this woman or this man or whatever, and I like this part of the dynamic. And then there's just an organic way where that will morph in and bless our relationship without actually having to act on that. But to this sense of, so why is relationship so sacred? Because it facilitates everything that I value more efficiently, more multidimensionally, more effectively than any other position. Casual sex is probably the most boring of the whole thing. This idea of let's just meet physical needs and keep emotionally distant. Now, you have to keep emotionally distant because every single human being has a possessive persona. And the possessive persona is around their emotional vulnerability and intensity. So you can, fuck around all you want. The price is either that one or both people are going to be hurt, or you keep out of that rich psychological terrain that has needs, that needs container, that needs commitment. Because if you're at all aware of energy dynamics, you don't set off on an ocean voyage with a leaking boat. You invest in a very strong container that is going to see you safely to the other side. No one sets off on a transatlantic journey expecting the boat to give way in the middle. They may paddle around the shore. They may row around the island, saying, I wonder when this is going to end. I wonder when he's going to flake out on me. I wonder, when he's going to sleep with my friend. We'll just paddle around the island, and I'll be ready to swim to shore on my own. And, that's just the way guys are, Sure, people will paddle around the edge. But if you want a great voyage, if you want to go to another continent within the psyche, you have to be worthy, seaworthy of that journey. And that means not telling lies. That means being solid. That means having clear agreements. That means being able to count on each other and honoring those agreements, not just sexually, but in communication and emotionally. Some grief coming up around times that I've wanted to depend on a partner for such a voyage and they've flaked out. A good approach is often to put a relationship through rocky terrain while you're still in the shallows to see how the boat holds up. You don't want to set sail on an untested craft. So you bring up uncomfortable topics. You bring up different ranges of scenarios and you see how your ship holds up. You don't go off on a long voyage until she's stable. And you want the kind of vessel, of course, that is strong enough to withstand the biggest storm that the probability field is going to hurl at you. Because you can't predict the weather. All you can say is, in the last 100 years going across the Atlantic, there's some pretty big hurricanes. Will this ship hold up? Now, if you've got a good ship, which is an act of profound self-love and love to one's partner, you've got a container that's going to weather that storm, that's going to survive cancer. If you've got something flaky, it's not really safe to go into those deep waters. And yet it is the deep waters of the psyche of the relationship that offer the biggest treasures, the biggest insights, those rare sea creatures of the mind, of the heart, of the body that are barely on record, that you've never met before. You didn't know that feeling was lurking into the underbelly of that water. But because your partner was stable, because you could absolutely depend that she had your best interest at heart, that she understood her own demons. You see, the part in every woman, the part in every man that will make her look bad so that the relationship seems more secure, right? When you convince a partner that they're full of shit, that nobody else will love them, and so they don't want to leave you. Well, that's a betrayal of a real partnership, of a friendship. But there is that voice in every human being, or the exploitive, or the manipulative, or the power grab. When someone's all thrown out and really needs you to do a power game in that point, to get a cheap hit. Obviously, you blow your trust. You don't get many chances at behaving that way and going into sacred waters. So what is it that is bigger than the relationship? And I think one question is this person, is this container helping me to be the person I want to be? Now, we ask that question in a more masculine and a more materialistic sense of, a woman might ask, is this man helping her career? Financially, logistically, etc. This is a better career alliance. And so this is a power politicking of social status, etc. And, in the paradigm of relationship as sex object and social status climber, there's not a great deal of honor, and there's not an incredible amount of intrinsic value. And so there's all kinds of reasons to leave the relationship. But with someone that's you're helping to grow, one reason to end is if you can't bring out the best in your partner. If you honestly have a variety of questions about Maybe you're destabilizing her with your volatility, or you have a low sensitivity or low tolerance for some habit, and so you're overly critical, and it seems to be undermining. They're not growing into who they are. I think that's a great way and a good reason to end a relationship, is if you or your partner is no longer growing, is no longer supported within the relationship to be their best person. It's a great reason to end a relationship. I also think that there's a way in which people, particularly as they mature, reach towards the ideal, towards a sense of a spirituality. Maybe it's a relationship with some energy in their dreams. A relationship that emerges in meditation, starting to show up in their diary, etc. And for some reason, that's taking you away, and the relationship becomes a burden, and your partner will not join you in that. I think that's a great springboard to close in a good and honorable way, specifically to find someone who celebrates who you are becoming, who sees and celebrates who you are. It's a beautiful reason to end a relationship. It's a beautiful reason to begin a new relationship. And often they can migrate a little bit. Because, if you bring someone in who really sees you, and you honor and you talk candidly about that with your partner, maybe your partner will start to see you through the other person's eyes and see something they missed. And in that certain way, that person can bless your partner and the relationship. It's good to have values and ideals that transcend the moment, that transcend your work, your location, your relationship, and to stay in a living relationship with that ideal. It's a delicate point because it's possible to end a good relationship in search of the ideal and actually go downhill. I did that for several years when, I couldn't find a committed partner. She never wanted to, fully show up, and I had other lovers, and, but I really wanted that ideal. But I didn't know how to create that. And I didn't really learn how to create that level of bond until I met my wife. And it was one of those instances where in order to love her, I had to become more. And the more I had to has become someone capable of that deeper level of relationship. It's a beautiful thing. When you love the beauty, truth, and goodness, the best self of your partner, which is never something weak, by the way. We patronize, we adore, we cuddle, we emasculate some soppy version of our partner that weakens them. But when you love, the goodness in someone is always blossoming, and it's always supporting them to step up and become more. It's like, no, you're not going to depend on me financially. But together, you'll learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Together, you'll go into your fears and discomforts. So, with that love of an ideal in the other, love of ideal in oneself, actively building to become someone capable of creating that. Aware that in a good relationship you grow more, it's healthier than being alone or, having casual flings. And a commitment to that ideal. There's times when I have an upsurge. It's like, I'm going for that. I want something that's not in this relationship, and I want it. And I always include my wife in that. And there's always a little bit of a space. Does that mean maybe in the next 5 years that I'm going to meet someone else? Or does that mean we're going to grow into it? And there's a little bit of uncertainty. And that creates an appreciation of the moment. I know I'm never going to meet someone like my wife again. I'm very, very, very lucky. I'm very fortunate and blessed to be loved by her for all the many gifts she gives me, and the gift she gives me in receiving my gifts so well. And yet we have questions and periodic conversations. I want her to be, her best self. I want her to grow in the best way possible. And there may come a time where I'm not the vehicle of that. I'm really enjoying this 10x exploration about how to co-create a 10x relationship. And I'll see you on the next video with the next topic.